And I'll tell you, when we walked in here to start talking, the wall of the history of the Chicago Bears, tell me about this, how it all came about.
Yeah, so when I got hired a couple of Januaries ago, I thought it was a good idea to have to celebrate the tradition, really of the Chicago Bears. And I told them, the design team, to really just do a good job of all the retired jerseys. I want it in black and white, and I want them in their uniforms. And I only had a couple of stipulations. I wanted Hallis up top, and I wanted Buckus up top and Sweetness up top. And since then, I've been able to use that wall to celebrate the tradition with all the free agents that come in, all the guys on 30 visits that we're going to draft or potentially draft. And I talk about each guy in the beginning of the interview, and then we go on to something else. And at the very end, before they walk out, I say, hey, can you tell me about those guys on the wall there? And see how they retain and see how they do things. But that's very important to the Chicago Bears, and it's very important to our organization.
That's great. Yeah, when I was looking at it up close, the only thing that bothered me personally, I think I know about 6 or 7 of those guys. You know what I mean? I think that's showing my age.
Oh, there's some great ones up there for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, being the head coach of one of the founding franchises, obviously, in the NFL, what emotions did you feel, or do you feel now? I mean, is it stress? Is it excitement? What's the emotion of sitting in the desk, basically, years ago, that George Hallis, our founder, sat at?
Yeah, it's special. I mean, you get this special feeling that comes over you during the course of a day, or a couple of times a week, where you're just like, hey, man, the tradition here is really cool, and it's something that we have to uphold. And when I first got the job, I texted or called a lot of the guys, and I even met with you, right? And we talked about that tradition, and those guys have laid the foundation of how the game's supposed to be played for the Chicago Bears, and we're upholding that.
Yeah. Joe, did you always think, and I think about this with my career, people have asked me, was your goal when you first started coaching, what got you into coaching? And then was your goal to be a head coach in the NFL or a head coach anywhere? Talk a little bit about what got you going down this path to where you're at today.
Yeah, I was real fortunate to be around a lot of good coaches. So I started out with, my junior year, Coach Saban, first year as a head coach at the University of Toledo. So I got a great model there of how to, take over a program and turn it around. And we won the MAC championship that year in 1990. And then he went to the pros, back to the pro football game. And then Gary Pinkel, who just got into the College Football Hall of Fame, I was with him for 18 years as his position coach, defensive coordinator, assistant head coach. And that's when I went to the pro football. And then in pro football, for me, it was Marinelli, who was my biggest influence in terms of how to partner up with the player. So my philosophy really is really from those 3 guys. And it's been great to be able to learn from those guys, because they are just unbelievable coaches, Hall of Fame coaches, and I was fortunate that way.
I don't know if it's just NFL or college, but I always thought that, you have kind of a window as a head coach where you got to put things together. Sometimes that window is 1 year, sometimes it's 6 years. It varies on the situation. Right now, before you really start feeling, I've got to win big this year, where do you feel where you're at right now with your football team as far as, moving toward getting to that point where you say, we're ready to really take the next big step?
Yeah, I would say that, when you look at year one, I was most proud of the guys because they established, our culture and how the standards at which we operate, and that's really based on our HITS principle, so the way, and it was fun for me as a head coach to be able to establish that with the entire football team. Obviously done it on the defensive side of the ball, but to really set the standards for the offensive line, the receivers, the running backs, how we operate, the physical style, how we finish, and it's all measured. That's the great thing about the HITS principle. The effort and the hustle is measured.
Yeah, talk about that.
Yeah, so for example, what we look for is that, we have the loaf system, so there's no change of speed. You're going full speed the whole time. You're not starting and stopping. And so that to me is the most important part. We have 6 or 7 ways to measure that. The intensity piece is that, hey, how we finish. How does an offensive line finish down the field? How does receivers finish their blocks? because we always say that, front side wins games, backside wins championships, and how we finish on the backside
I like
is so huge. And then really the ball is the next one. So how we attack the football on defense, how we protect the ball on offense is everything in practice. And then we carry that over to the game. And then really what I think we take a big step, we have a huge advantage is that we really take a lot of time on being smart, situational players. And those things are all measured. And we do a lot of things during practice, after practice. We have situational periods, and we educate the players in the meetings. And I think that's what we established that first year. And then going into year 2, now that we have that and our culture has been built, we spent a lot of time this offseason in relationships, and we would take team meetings, and we had these things called skull sessions where we would talk about, hey, who's my hero? What was my hardship? What was my highlight? And we got to know each other, and it intermixed the group 6 times, during the offseason, and we're still doing it. We're on our 3rd time doing it this way. So we feel that we build strong relationships during times of adversity. This second year, we're going to be able to hold together and do a great job of bouncing back and, taking the next step. And that's really what we're looking for this second year, is the ability to take that next step, of being a football team is offense, defense, kicking, playing complementary football.
It's amazing how the game's changed. You're talking about relationship. We went up to Platteville for training camp.
Right.
And it was going on the 3rd week. We were going 2-a-days, full pads. And we were 7 days a week. I think we gave them the morning off. We started later so they could go to church. And God bless Steve McMichael and Keith Van Horn, 2 of the old vets.
Yeah.
Okay, came to me and says, Coach, we're going on our 3rd week. Are we ever going to get together and just talk about the schedule a little bit? It reminded me of what you're saying, the interaction with the players.
Yeah, right.
And I said, what do you want to talk about? And they said, Coach, we hadn't had a day off or a night off. And I went, I said, you're right. I said, you know what? We have a good practice today. We'll have the night off. And so that was, today I think the athlete obviously has changed, how dealing with these athletes. I give you a lot of credit because that's, I talk to coaches all over the country doing all this TV and radio stuff. And the coaches that can communicate with players like you do, and have a staff that can communicate with players, they're obviously going to get the most out of their guys. So, that's a credit to you.
Yeah, the main philosophy that we have, I wanted to bring in guys that loves football as a coach, and they're great teachers, right? And they're able to partner with the players. So I learned this from Marinelli, how to partner with a guy. So, and to get the best out of him, and he helps push you to be the best you can be as a coach. And so we're always talking about that. So in able to do that, you have to have a humble and a heart of service.
Mm-hmm.
And every one of these coaches that I interviewed has that. They are all into the players, partnering with the players, and serving the players. Now, serving the players, you're pushing them,
Right.
and you're helping them get through adversity, helping them with fundamentals, technique. You're helping them all the way through because it is a partnership. And we always tell them that, hey, the product that we see on the field is the players, right? So we're going to make sure that we're putting all of our time and attention into that. So you really have to take your ego back a little bit as a coach. It's not about you. It's about what the product is. The product is a player. A pivotal moment for me in my coaching career, I was coaching for the University of Toledo, and we were playing Navy at Navy. So we're down there in Annapolis playing them, and they start the game, as you know, wishbone.
Right. Oh, yeah.
So the head coach is Gary Pinkel, the defensive coordinator is Tom Amstutz, okay? And they start the game, and they get in, running the wishbone, and we can't stop them, right? And it's just right down the field, they score. Next, they kick it off to us, onside kick, recover it, right? Go down the field, score, right? And I talked to Tom because I was up in the box with him, he'd sit right next to him. I said, we got to go to our alternative defense, which is more of a shell defense, more of a 4-3 type of concept. We were playing 4-4 to start, and we had a couple of calls off of that. And I made that suggestion, and that was probably the first suggestion I made, as a coach to the defensive coordinator, and we shut them out the rest of the way, and we beat them 35-14. And that was a pretty cool moment. I'm like, man, I love this football, so that was kind of a pivotal moment for me. So
yeah, I got a couple of them. The one that probably was the difference of getting a Super Bowl ring or not We're playing Buffalo in the Super Bowl. Now, I'm the head coach of the Bears. I had they haven't done this since I think they put a rule in. So I'm the head coach of the Bears and the assistant head coach of the Cowboys, coaching in the Super Bowl, Pasadena against Buffalo. And they get down and score. We were going to play man coverage, which we weren't a big man team, and we're working on. We spent time on it, so we did it. And Jim Kelly and Thurman Thomas and a whole bit, they were good. And so it's a 3-point game in the second quarter, and they drive down to the goal line, and I'm up in the press box, and I got all my charts like we do, And I'm looking at this, and we stop them on first down, and they make a couple on second. So now it's 4th down and about 3. And they send in their goal line people, okay, Buffalo. So Butch Davis and Jimmy and everybody in the sideline, goal line. We're going to match up with them. Mm-hmm. So we start sending our goal line people in. And I'm sitting up in the press box, and I'm looking at this, and Marv Levy, Coach Levy, he called the short yardage and goal line plays. So I had a little box just for him. And I'm looking, and I said, you know what, guys? He has never, ever run the football if it's been more than 2 yards all year. I said, let's go base defense. And Jimmy says, base. I said, base defense. So Butch Davis starts screaming, back out there, base defense. Guys grabbing their helmets. The big guys running off. So they're in big personnel, and we're in our base with 4 DBs. Guess what they do? They roll out to throw it, and Jim Kelly, we have pressure. Charles Haley gets his hands up, and Jim Kelly forces the ball. We intercept it and turn it back. And at that point, next thing, the games are slaughtered. Right. We run away with it. But, I mean, that was a critical – and I remember sitting up there saying, wow, that really happened, So it was a feel-good.
That's fun when that happened.
Oh, yeah, because it's happened the other way, a lot of times.
Oh, yeah,
too.
Trust me, yeah.
Let me ask you one last question. Okay. Any thoughts for the near future of ever throwing a mustache or anything here in Chicago?
Yeah, I don't know. I'll leave that to you. For sure.
Why? I see so on this board now. You're going to see,
Yeah, for sure.